Hello world, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello world and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the Finger Lakes region of New York State. So great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, August 7th, and as promised, I have the Naomi Wolf and the Sasha Latypova in the Joy Virtual Studio with me today to talk about everything MAHA and what MAHA is not. It's also, as you know, the meeting of the honorary founding members of the Bad Girls Club. We are always kicking hornets' nest, not on purpose, but holding these guys accountable has become harder and harder and harder. And we know the medical freedom community came together in earnest in the dark days of 2020 and 2021 to protest and rail against the forced lockdowns, the forced masking, and most importantly, the rollout of the toxic, poisonous mRNA shots. We were against the coercion, the liability protection for the pharmaceutical corporations, the firing of doctors and nurses and hospital staffers, everything that bad that happened during that time, we railed against. And that culminated in the election of Donald Trump, who promised to put in place Bobby Kennedy Jr., who promised to take care of a lot of these things and more, addressing the childhood vaccine schedule, vaccine injury and death, and all things COVID. Well, here we are now 8 months into this administration, and I got to tell you, from my perspective, getting discernible policy outcome and results has been like pulling teeth. And some of the women out there holding this administration accountable, holding members of the medical freedom community accountable, particularly Bobby Kennedy Jr., are with me today in the studio. Obviously, Naomi Wolf is with us and Sasha Latypova. Girls, let's bring them both into the Joy Virtual Studio. Ladies, thank you so much for being with us today. How are we doing? Naomi?
Really good. I'm in the belly of the beast in a sense because I'm in deepest Brooklyn, so I'm a little self-conscious talking about health freedom. It's a kind of a traumatic environment for me because as an unvaccinated person, I could not walk into restaurants, and eat with my family for, months, if not over a year, during the worst of the bad years of the lockdown. And nonetheless, I'm also kind of feeling hopeful because last night I was at a fundraiser for a candidate, Janine Aquafreda, who's running as a Republican for New York City, for Brooklyn Borough President. And I was surrounded by unbelievable candidates who also are lifelong Democrats who switched over to run as Republicans, including a 23-year-old young man named Elijah Diaz. And I interviewed another young woman, Athena Clark, running for Brooklyn City Council. And the reason I'm bringing this up is they're running to reinstate the first responders and teachers who were fired and lost benefits and retirement and healthcare, everything, for refusing this injection. An injection that just yesterday RFK Jr. announced was, not worth it, not worth jeopardizing people for. So that's where I am. And otherwise, I'm really good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely. And isn't it ironic that it seems in some ways we're getting more victory from the belly of the beast in New York City than we are from apparently our guys in Washington, D.C. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. There are some wins, but as I said earlier yesterday on my Twitter account, it seems as if the medical freedom movement is being killed by 1,000 fake wins, right? These wins that they are trotting out as great victories for the medical freedom movement, that once you peek beneath the surface, you begin to realize they're not really wins and they're not really rolling anything back. In fact, they're pressing the pedal to the metal on so many new mRNA technologies. And Sasha, that's something that you and I will be talking about in just a little bit. But welcome to the program, Sasha. Glad you're here as well.
Hi, thanks for inviting me. Hi, Naomi.
Yeah. So it's been interesting. We're going to get to Sasha in just a little bit, but Naomi, you're on a deadline. So I want to start with you on the most recent controversy, I guess. It seems like time and time again, whether it is the dream team on the ASIP or VICP reform or, removing the COVID shot from the childhood schedule, which wasn't really removed technically, removing it from the recommendation for pregnant women, which it wasn't really technically. It seems like we have like these great wins, but then when you peek beneath the surface, you look under the hood of the car, you realize there's no there there. And there's been a recent now controversy over another statement by members of Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s administration that, yes, indeed, we removed this recommendation from, pregnant women, and they're doubling down on it, but it's just not the case. So can you talk about what recently has happened and your feelings in general on the progress for medical freedom within this administration, particularly RFK's Jr.'s HHS?
So do you want me to focus on the controversy that you and Dr. Mary Bowden and Sasha Latypova and I wrote an open letter about? Or do you want me to address the announcement yesterday about BARDA?
Why don't we first address the announcement by BARDA and then we'll extrapolate it to the larger letter, because that's kind of an umbrella statement from us, right? Like, you're not addressing the things we want to, go ahead.
Right. I love the way you introduced this, because it's actually, as a journalist, very hard to cover these announcements because they backtrack back on themselves, right? And they keeping on the one hand this, but on the other hand that. And as you put it, your metaphor was, it's a shiny Corvette, or I'm adding details, but if you look under the car hood, it's kind of the same old stinking Humvee, right? So I wish they wouldn't do that. I always say in these moments, I was twice a political consultant for 2 successful presidential campaigns, if you go by Clinton's reelection and winning the popular vote for Al Gore. And what I learned from those years really hasn't changed in the decades later. You can't fool people, right? People are not stupid. And especially now, it's much harder to fool people than back when candidates, only had to persuade 3 networks and 2 newspapers. Everyone can check citations. Everyone can read a press release. Everyone can read a scientific paper, even, or, half of our audience easily can read a scientific paper. So I, on the one hand, am very happy that RFK Jr., I want to give him credit where it's due, defunded or issued a press release saying he was defunding 22 studies that Mary Bowden and Sasha Latypova, I want to be sure to attribute to the right person, pointed out are a long way from ever reaching the market, that are based on mRNA. And I'm certainly happy that he told the obvious truth that the mRNA injection doesn't help people with COVID or, upper respiratory illness. I mean, this is quite a big sentence for him to unleash on the American public. And it's true. And we know from many, many sources that it's true. I always go back to the Pfizer documents study, because that's, my source of my first expertise, where Pfizer itself concluded within a month after the rollout that the vaccine had failure of efficacy. It failed. It didn't work. And if they hadn't hidden 8 people who died with COVID, from their table, they would have had to report that you're much more likely to be hospitalized and die with the injection than without. So on one hand, and I hate reporting things like this, on one hand, it's really, really good that the Secretary of HHS said this platform doesn't help you with upper respiratory infections. But then what drives me crazy about this administration or this agency, because they're much worse at it than even MAGA, is that then they go on to contradict themselves in the very same press release and hope that we won't notice. As Mary Bowden pointed out, that the CDC recommendations are still intact,
right?
And these injections are still being recommended insanely for sick kids and pregnant women, even though they claimed that it's not pregnant women. Sasha Latypova made that case, so did Dr. Bowden, brilliantly. And then in the same press release, it goes on to say, we're not going to stop the, I think, rollout or studies, it was unclear, of other contracts that are based on the mRNA platform for this nonsensical, thus damaging by side effects purpose of getting mRNA into people, because the taxpayers have already paid for them. And my first response to the source who keeps leaking to me from HHS and wanting me to give nothing but positive coverage for these wonderful milestones is, well, if it's so sucky, why are you putting it in people's bodies?
Right. Absolutely. I mean, that is the 80-pound gorilla in the room that is sitting on the corner of the paper that carries the press release that they're sending out. It's like, so you're acknowledging these truths, yet not changing anything fundamentally, and astonishingly still trying to trick the American people into thinking that it is not on the recommended list of vaccinations for pregnant women, which it is considered to be a high risk category, which is what we've been talking about forever, yet they keep doubling and tripling down on this. Now you talk about, Naomi, the HHS PR people who are, they don't even talk to me. They don't send anything to me. I don't, but they're kind of trying to influence you and push these out. They want great headlines. They want a tweet or an interview or some type of congratulatory, effort so that they can craft an illusion that something happened here when nothing really happened here. What do you feel about that? And yeah.
I'm sorry, was that directed at me or?
Yeah, that's you.
Okay. I do want to give credit where credit is due. Okay, defunding $500 million, I believe, right? Isn't it $500 million from some of the people who pay the checks of both, representatives on both sides of the aisle, is a big deal. And it is what we voted for. It's a piece in a giant puzzle that we voted for. It's one piece. But it did take a fair amount of courage to defund, that much money but if you read the fine print, is it defunded or is it reallocated, right? I want to see this balance sheet. Something this administration doesn't do is ever link to the primary sources. So my worry is that the money didn't get clawed back or, given to roads and schools or, back into the treasury. It just went to develop some other thing from either these same companies or friends of these same companies or interlocking boards of these same companies, right? We don't know. But I have seen this before, this bait and switch. For instance, when there was a movement to stop recommending, or as my source at HHS keeps proudly noting, they're not recommended for pregnant women, but they are, right? But technically they're off the recommendation list, but pregnancy is a high-risk category. Like, that doublespeak is so maddening. But the point is, whatever gesturally they were doing toward pregnant women, they then had Marty Makary, the head of the FDA, come out and say, well, postmenopausal women really need to be on hormones. Well, 2 clicks in, with no science, right? 2 clicks in, I saw that who makes the hormones? It's Pfizer.
Unbelievable.
So
Unbelievable.
It's like moving deck chairs around on the Titanic, or moving pots of money in a shell game at Las Vegas. And I just want to say again, as a political consultant in my past, that is not how you get people on board. It's not how, and it's easy to get people on board. Just be honest. Even if your press release has to say, I know this will be disappointing to some of our base, it's not everything they want, but here is an important announcement. We're defunding these, and here's why. The science isn't there for these injections. We're going to keep working on it. Fine, you'll get good press, but don't, I hate to think of that expression. For some reason in this call, I keep thinking of metaphors, but what's that incredibly vulgar impression? don't urinate on my back and tell me it's raining.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It's insulting and it's quite frankly infuriating. I have an entire list here of all of the ways that they have danced to try to make us believe that something is really happening. Sasha Latypova is with us as well. And Naomi was very kind to give them credit for the $500 million, the defunding of mRNA. And that's the headline they want. They want the medical freedom community to believe that Bobby Kennedy Jr. has defunded mRNA technology, right? When in reality, it's something quite different. Sasha, I'm sure you won't be nearly as nice as Naomi. You bad girl.
Right, that's why we're a bit go.
So what do you make of this announcement? I know you had something to say. I quoted you yesterday in a short response, but let's get your thoughts on that announcement.
Right. So I started looking into it in more detail. My initial reaction was also, okay, it's a nice small step in the right direction. 500 million is a significant amount of money. Now, for private sector investing, for government, it's very small change. Let me remind you that Moderna received about 2 billion out of total 5 billion investment since 2011 when they were founded from the U.S. government, from DARPA, from other sources, BARDA. That was just government grants, completely free money, basically. So the company did not have to sell equity to private investors and dilute themselves.
Wow.
It just got free gift from U.S. governments for some reason. We don't know. $2 billion went into Moderna even before 2020. In 2020, obviously, the heavens opened and MAHA came down on both Moderna and Pfizer and J&J in amounts of like $10 billion each, right away. So now we're talking canceling 500 million in funding, of which 176 million went to Moderna and probably already spent. I'm looking into it in more detail, but it looks like it already is spent. So now we're talking about 300 million canceled to 21 projects, which amounts to about 15 million each, of which these projects, most of them, were not even close to anywhere in clinical trials. Some of them were scientific grants given to universities. So I'm looking at that list and I'm going to publish an article on it. Now, what is meant for us to do, and that's why the CDC contacts are calling Naomi, is they want us to just take those press releases, put them into ChatGPT, like most of the health freedom commentators are doing, produce enthusiastic output saying, "Hi, we're winning. These are great achievements. RFK Jr. is defeating the globalists," and all sorts of things like that. We're not doing that. We're going to read and check the sources. That's what's going to come out of the Bad Girls Club. So as I said, it appears that what they canceled is small potatoes, and I'm going to publish a more detailed review on this. But as far as saying that, also the headlines from Health Freedom are coming out as mRNA is done. They're canceling all of the mRNA. That's not true. Because the new HHS administration has approved several mRNA shots as they came into the office. They fully approved the one for children, the Moderna and Pfizer mRNAs for children. They used to be EUAs, and now they gave them full approvals. Now, my position on it; those are fake full approvals. But let's humor them and say, okay, fine, you fully approve these mRNA shots for children based on no evidence whatsoever. And then they also plan to approve self-amplifying RNA from Arcturus, and this press release also mentions that. So that clinical trial is currently ongoing. Phase 3 trial is ongoing in the US, and it will involves no placebo control, that trial.
Wow. So,
yeah. So they're planning to approve that self-amplifying RNA from Arcturus in the US based on no placebo-controlled trial.
That's horrifying. That's horrifying. And they had the balls to put that in the same press release.
Yeah.
Naomi, that seems almost like they're giving us the middle finger. Like they're writing this press release, but even in the press release, they're saying like the worst of the worst of the mRNA from what I have read, is the assay, the self-amplifying mRNA, and that's the one that they're clinging to. And if I'm not mistaken, last time I talked to Dr. Mary Talley Bowden, there was something around the number of 500 or more mRNA technologies in the hopper for FDA approval. So if we're talking about 21, Naomi, I mean, if they're trying to hide this and play a little game, they're not doing a very good job. It's almost as if they're a bit brazen in their admission that it's BS. Am I overthinking this? But that's a lot.
Well, I guess to me, the disturbing part is the kind of coda in this press release, which really has, a whole other conversation is why is HHS's press effort so hapless? Like my heart breaks for the fact that they don't seem to have any comms director. I mean, they have a guy who's the comms director, but somehow they're engaged in, one of the most catastrophic media outreach efforts I've seen in my adult life. And it's really unfortunate because, what HHS is trying to do at its best is difficult enough. You need the political capital behind you of a good, media team telling the story well, and not telling it in a way that, three ladies can pick apart in 5 minutes on independent media, let alone 4 if we were by our co-author, Mary Bowden. So what worries me is at the end, RFK Jr. said, we're really looking for a universal vaccine. And
Wait. You cut out just a little bit. Will you say that again, please?
Sure. Sorry about that. It's a very noisy. I said, what really worries me is at the end of his announcement, RFK Jr. said, basically we're going to shift our resources, meaning not save the taxpayers a penny, right? Not stop the gusher of money, but we're going to shift the taxpayer money to a universal platform, an everything vaccine. And I don't know if you guys were talking about this because I had a little interference myself, but that's, the same thing that these monsters, not this group, not our friends at HHS, but the previous administration's monsters, the globalist monsters, all of these, Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, the funders behind Moderna, Pfizer, AstraZeneca, they're all looking for the universal vaccine. And they all want to replicate the human immune system, which I can tell you from the story of the Tower of Babel on is a bad idea. Like, you can't do it, right? You can't replicate the immune system. No. But that's what they want. And they want that for patent reasons, is my guess, coming from the tech world. And Sasha's nodding her head. I'm dying to know what she thinks about this, because the person who holds the company, the investors who have pulled the patent on the platform for the universal vaccine, can license it to absolutely everyone who wants to modify it for whatever, herpes or AIDS or cancer or whatever it is they want to market as a kind of business line for the person who holds the patent for the universal vaccine. Is that right, Sasha, or am I imagining
Yes,
that?
exactly. I think, so they mentioned this several times now, that this we're going to switch to a different platform that's better than mRNA. And what they mean, at least from what I've seen released so far in these press releases, they mean some sort of a whole virus approach, which has been discredited decades ago. This is why everyone was advertising, we're going to go to these subunits, these proteins, these recombinant, blah, 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 because they're better than whole virus, because we're only, creating a small portion of it. And technically, it is much more difficult to create a whole virus. So whole virus, for example, and again, setting aside my position on viruses and virology, but again, I'm humoring the great gold science here. And I'm saying, yes, whole virus. So you're telling me you're going to synthesize whole virus, the smallest ones, like COVID, for example, SARS-CoV-2, and a few others. The smallest ones are 30,000 base pairs. Larger ones like herpes virus is 150,000 base pairs. it's not possible to synthesize. And this mRNA, the mRNA in Moderna and Pfizer is about 3,000 base pairs coding for spike protein, theoretically. So even with the 3,000 base pairs, there hasn't been so far a single vial of that shot found where that 3,000 base pair sequence is reproduced with fidelity and with a high enough percentage to even call it a fairly well-produced product, regardless of how poisonous it is. But if you set out to make this poison, at least make it to the specification. They have not been able to show that they can make this to the specification. Now they're telling us, oh, we're going to make 30,000 base pair minimum whole viruses somehow. How? There's no science, there's no technology that can do this reliably. So nobody has produced it. You can read Ralph Barrick's papers and reports and books on this matter and scientific literature. They will all say, we can't synthesize a molecule like this. Ralph Barrick method was to synthesize those 3,000 base pairs by gluing together different segments of DNA and then calling it a synthetic RNA product.
Wow.
So there isn't even a technology to do this. The previous platforms for whole viruses were culturing them in chicken embryos and other cell lines and so forth. They were culturing and growing them from some samples collected from jungles or wherever they're collecting those samples. So they were basically growing them like crops. Now they're saying they're going to make them synthetically. I've yet to see any evidence that there is even technology like this. So what are they talking about? This gives me huge concern. And besides the technical issues, why are they going to do it, and what's the purpose of it? And yeah, I agree. It's probably for the IP for their investors, whoever the investors are, and it remains to be seen which platform they're going to go with. And we're going to scrutinize them very, very heavily, including their IP positions, who owns them, investors, backers, both on the government side, the military side, the private sector side. Just be ready. Yeah. I am gearing myself up to study that topic in great detail.
You ladies are scary. I love it.
I love it. Naomi, what would be the political reason? I mean, because it seems like a throwaway statement at the end of a press release, right? Well, we're gonna move away from this, but we're going on to this kind of unicorn, this mythical unicorn at the end of the rainbow that they're gonna jump into the pot. Like, what do you make of that? Do you think it's just to kind of dangle some funding in front of these pharmaceutical companies to make them think that, yeah, we're not going to take all of your money? Or does this concern you as much as it concerns Sasha? Because I don't understand. I mean, we don't know yet what to be worried about because we don't really know what this is. But what are your thoughts and takeaways from that?
Well, I mean, I can say, without Sasha's in-depth knowledge that she just displayed about, why the universal vaccine is impossible scientifically, that it's a, how can I put it? It's a quixotic and probably disastrous goal on the face of it, call for papers kind of thing, right? Like it's almost guaranteed to fail, right? But it's guaranteed to fail. So to answer your question, what's he doing? And I really empathize with him, which is why I really wish they could just be honest and not overclaim and, enlist people's support in the fight instead of pretending they've won the fight, right? Which they're not doing. But he has to give the vaccine industry, the pharmaceutical industry, what he took away, right? That's the only way that deal could be brokered. And it is a deal. Behind the scenes, it's a deal. Whether it's a deal with, Albert Bourla directly or with the senator who kind of herds pharma money into the government, who was tasked with overseeing everything RFK Jr. does, or whether it's a deal with Susie Wiles, whoever brought hammered out the deal, it's a deal. I mean, why is Dr. Malone there? Blah, right? I mean, he has many, many gatekeepers surrounding him.
Yeah.
And I don't want to minimize that. Like, that's real. But he could be in a much more powerful position if he, again, told the truth to his base and reached out to get them to lobby for the things that will empower him. That's not what he's doing. All of that being said, sorry, just to answer your question, it seems by the kind of impossible goal that was set at the end of this press release that's your answer. I mean, reading it as not as a scientist, but as a political consultant. Yeah. The game is, look what happened to AstraZeneca. Look what happened to Johnson & Johnson. You know, produce something that there's a story around, you know, that justifies the need for the federal government to invest billions in it. Get the money from the federal government, investing billions in it. You know, put it into some thousands or millions of hapless people who trust you. Then by the time it's clear that it doesn't work or that something terrible has happened to them, fold your tent like they did, like AstraZeneca did in Britain, and, you know, tiptoe off stage, right, with the check. I mean, that's the play. And so, sure, that worked. You know, that was an impossible thing. We said we did it. We couldn't do it. It didn't work. It didn't happen with COVID. By the time everyone realized that it was fake, it didn't work, it didn't happen. Sorry, guys, we have our checks. We've cashed them. Apologies. We have the PrEP Act. Nothing really bad will happen to us. Let's do it again. So that's how I read the everything vaccine. It's like the grail, you know, like you'll never find it, but you can keep looking. That didn't quite work. Let's try something else. It's the universal vaccine. That's the answer. It's just to allow another decade of money gushing into the coffers, you know, before anyone can say it didn't work. Because also, it's such a, I'm sorry, but it's such a fucking quixotic goal that you have a long way to go of it not working before people say this doesn't work, right? Let's fly.
Money after money after money after money.
We're still trying to fly, right? Sorry, go ahead.
You're blowing my mind right now with this, because I guess my question, I know you have to go, Naomi, I want to respect your time. So I want, you know, I'll certainly let you go. But like, okay, this is the hard question. How long? I mean, this is evil, right? What happened with Operation Warp Speed was evil. It was disastrous. It was horrific. We have the benefit of hindsight. We have the benefit of a guy at HHS who knows about all of this, who lived all of this, who should know better, right? So I guess my question is how long do we give him a benefit of a doubt? Like, how long do we say he's our friend in HHS if he's overseeing this? He has to know about it. Like, I'm looking at from a political perspective, you know, from someone who has dealt as the mediator between politicians and political organizations. How much rope does a political organization or an interest group give to a politician or a bureaucrat before it's better for us to just cut bait and get the heck out of here and then begin to resist from the outside again? Because I am concerned that this movement is being fractured, busted apart, rendered completely impotent through all of this mismanagement, the deception, the psychological operations trying to convince us that the sky is green and the grass is blue, and we're sit here like I feel like I'm being gaslit here. How long do we do this before we're just like clean break? Sorry, we're going. Go ahead.
I understand. And I'm just going to answer that question, then I'm going to say goodbye.
Yep.
So that's a great, important question, Shannon. But I'd encourage you and all our listeners to not think about politics that way at all. Like, just throw that frame out the window. And what I mean is, it's not about anyone in that position being our friend, right? Mm-hmm. It's not about people, what they know. You can't expect anyone, like, you know, Mother Teresa could be, you know, appointed to HHS and have have the purest intentions in the world, and she can only do what Susie Wiles will let her do, you know, and the other pressures around you. So, you know, as I've said before, two things. One is, which is why I keep encouraging them to get decent comms assistance in there. Leadership is like facing those pressures, not being surprised by them, and enlisting your base and helping you fight them, right? That we know, like, the pressure's not going to go away. You know, pharma is not going to ever want to give RFK Jr. free rein to do what he knows is best. So we have to stop reading what he's doing as if it's like our guy that we had beers with, which we may have. You know, everyone's had a beer with RFK Jr. Like he's lovely.
I haven't.
I'm
glad I haven't.
Do
Be so mean.
what he would do as a private citizen. That's not possible. And the reason I'm encouraging you to think like this is, and that's true for everyone, you know, Trump can't do, you know, like whoever the anti-Trump is can't do. No one can do what they want. What I learned from Gore, and I respected it, is he said, make me, right? The base has to make them. And so it's like day by day, fight by fight, announcement by announcement, we're doing, and our audiences are doing by supporting us and giving us feedback, what you're supposed to do to get outcomes at the highest levels. We're not relenting in our pressure. So believe me, our being bitches and hoes for justice. You know?
Our little hate group, according to Bob Malone. I call him Bob Malone now.
Yeah.
So our being, you know, like, what do we call it? Bitches for liberty, right? Has had an impact. You wouldn't have this much movement. Yeah. We wouldn't be being harangued by our sources at HHS if, you know, they weren't concerned that we keep raising these questions. So that's good because everyone's doing what they're supposed to do. They're trying to badger and browbeat us. It's not the best way to do it, but it, you know, they're doing their job. We're pushing and pushing. Our audiences are helping us push and push. And what we pushed on with our open letter is superseded by this pushback. And then they'll adjust with the next thing. And then we'll push back in that way. My point is every single person watching, every person in America needs to understand that being a bitch or asshole for liberty is their job every single day and never relenting with decision, press release, outcome, you know, day after day after day is how the game is played. You don't relent and you make it clear that no one owns you and you're going to take your ball and go to another candidate if this candidate, you know, if this administration doesn't deliver. So that's how I'm encouraging you to think about it. It's never going to be a collaboration. It's going to be a least bad accommodation. And we need to make ourselves as scary and problematic as pharma, if not more so. And we can, and we are.
As scary and problematic as pharma. I love it. Bitches for liberty. Let's go. I'm seeing merch. I'm seeing, dreams of merchandise, hats, t-shirts. You know?
Gotta do it. Gotta do it. I'll order 10.
I love it. I love it. Dr. Naomi Wolf, very quickly, how can people support you? We'll let you go, and then we'll finish up with Sasha Latypova.
Thank you. Well, before I go, I just really want to thank you and Sasha and Dr. Bowden, you know, who's not with us virtually, but she's with us in mission, because it's very lonely to do the kinds of things that we do. And it really has given me, you know, support and a kind of a second wind, but also a lot of information I didn't have by myself to align with you guys on the, you know, the revenge of the uteruses issue. Going to go away. I want to thank all of your audiences too, because without them, you know, we would just be, you know, sitting, having our nails done somewhere complaining, right? And so where you support me and my work and this work with these ladies is on Daily Clout. You can subscribe or donate, and also over on Outspoken on Substack. My Substack is Outspoken. Even more important, I would say, if you're in Brooklyn, please look into Athena Clark running for city council to reinstate and compensate the mandated laid off first responders and teachers, and donate to her if you can. She's going to reach matching funds if she can get just $300 more from her district in Brooklyn and 30 more donors. So it's very important if you live in Brooklyn or if you're in her district, or even if you don't live in Brooklyn, but you care about the first responders who've been laid off now for 4 years, go support them, okay? Over at Park Fork Council.
Oh, so appreciate that. We absolutely will, Dr. Naomi Wolf. We really appreciate you. And yes, the embodiment of all of the above. Top down, yes, we address what they're doing at HHS and at the federal government, but bottom up, what's happening at the local level? How can we empower our local officials to stand up to the feds when they try to do really nasty things? And this is something that we have been pushing here on the Shannon Joy Show for quite some time. So thank you to Naomi Wolf. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to finish off the show with the amazing Sasha Latypova. We're going to get into the details of some of the false wins coming out of HHS and again, get her perspective on how to fight back as well. I love hearing that fighting spirit from Sasha, one of the most brilliant women in the United States of America with a deep understanding of the pharmaceutical industry and how they interface with the federal government in these agencies. We're going to learn from Sasha in just a moment. Keep it tuned right here. We'll be back on the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you to Satellite Phone Store, sat123.com/joy, sat123.com/joy. Without their amazing sponsorship, we couldn't bring the show to you every day. And it's always 10% off for every Joy viewer and listener with the promo code JOY. Why do we love them? Well, among other things, the satellite phones, the generators, the solar panels, everything you need for when the lights go out. They also have the most extensive line, one of the best quality lines of Faraday technology, beanies, bags, blankets, apparel. This is a way for you to reduce your body's exposure to EMF, electromagnetic frequencies. And as we know, talking to Dr. Williams, that exposure can impact your heart health. And so a regular usage of that type of technology, super helpful. Again, so thankful to the Satellite Phone Store, among our other sponsors. We love the folks over at Native Path. As you know, my morning routine is everything to me. Every morning I hydrate with Native Path Hydrate, and right after the hydration, the collagen goes in the coffee every single morning. Collagen is something that everyone over the age of 45 should start considering because as we age, our bodies produce less collagen. That can impact our joint, our muscles, our hair, our nails, our skin. It is the reduction in the production of collagen that kind of makes you look old. So collagen is one of my beauty secrets. Devastatingly Handsome Dr. Joy, he uses it to tackle his joint pain, and it's the best on the market. Absolutely flavorless. It dissolves instantly, no clumps, no mess. It is 100% grass-fed beef beef collagen, and it is delicious. Native Path always has the best price point, and right now, 45% off for the Joy audience. Go to getnativepathcollagen.com. That is getnativepathcollagen.com for the exclusive 45% off stock up sale. I have not found a better product at a better price point than Native Path's collagen. It beats Walmart, it beats BJ's, anything you can get online. It just gets the job done, which is why I love it and why I use it every morning. Thank you to Native Path Collagen. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. I mean, all of the Native Path products are simply amazing. In the Joy household, we use the Hydrate. We use the Native Path Complete Protein. We use, obviously, the Native Path Collagen, which is right now on sale, 45% off if you go to getnativepathcollagen.com/joy. And that's a limited time, but it is the cleanest, the best, the highest quality collagen on the market at the absolute lowest price point. This is why I love their products. In fact, devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy the other night, he uses everything, but every so often, if he plays volleyball, he will cramp up, or if he's doing some type of strenuous activity, he'll get these cramps. It's not very often, but middle of the night last week, I'm like in the bed next to him. All of a sudden he's like, oh my gosh, like screaming, yelling, like stiff as his board. His feet are out like completely straight. And apparently both of his legs cramped up. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like trying to like get him up and turn him around in the bed because he can't like bend his legs. And he goes to me and goes, get me the native path hydrate now, get me the native path hydrate, because it has the electrolytes in it. And so like I'm running downstairs and I'm mixing it up and I bring it up to him and it took care of it. But like, that's how dependent the whole family is. My son has an entire box full of all of the stuff he's bringing back to college, and he wants to get his volleyball team on it because they're just great products. They deliver, they're clean, and the price points are absolutely perfect. So we love the team over at Native Path. Please go to their website, getnativepathcollagen.com right now. We know what collagen does for your hair, your nails, your skin, your joints. It addresses joint pain. And we know that as we age, we lose a lot of the production of collagen in our body. So this is why I use Native Path Collagen every single day in my coffee. Doesn't help with cramping, but they have the hydrate for that. GetNativePathCollagen.com/joy. Okay, Sasha Latypova, welcome back to the Joy Virtual Studio. Poor Devastating. He's going to be mad at me for telling that story. But it was, I almost fell over laughing because he's like, get the Native Path hydrate. Like, you understand you're going to be like the source of a commercial next.
Yeah. Right.
That's what happens when you're married to or the children of someone who is, in the media. You never know when you're going to be the source of a live read. So, so I love having Naomi in. She has such a nice way of playing hardball in politics, right? Yes. And there's a lot of wisdom in what she had to say about what we need to do moving forward. I think, though, we do need as a movement, or as many of us in this movement, to acknowledge that the promises that they made, the expectations that we had, namely in, these three critical categories, right? Mm-hmm. Get rid of mandates. They don't even talk about getting rid of mandates. That's not even on the table, right? Remove pharmaceutical liability protections. Nothing on the table for removing pharma liability protections. In fact, they're extending protections now to chemical companies, which I'll be reporting on next week. I actually have Dennis Kucinich's wife, Elizabeth Kucinich, will be joining us either next week or the week after to talk about the new pharmaceutical style liability protections built in to the big, beautiful bill, which are going to be extended to chemical corporations, which is insane, right? So on this narrow issue of removing COVID mRNA shots from the markets, or telling the truth about vaccine injury and death, in that area, we're getting like all of these fake wins, and in some cases things are even worse. No mention of the vaccine injured, by the way. No NIH studies being funded to help or take care of the vaccine injured, people who are still suffering, people who have lost loved ones, or compensate them even for what they went through. We can talk about the vaccine injury compensation program. That was another fake win, by the way, which we can get into. What are your thoughts overall? I've spoken enough on the issues that I've laid out here. What are your thoughts first on like the big umbrella and that acknowledgement, and then like homing in on what we need to do to win these battles in the way that Naomi talked about in that last segment?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Naomi. That was a very, very good advice about how to handle the politics on the receiving end, right? As private citizens. She's absolutely correct. These people, when they get into positions of power and government, they're not our friends. Even if you thought that they're private, you know some of them, met some of them, you think they're great people, and you think that they're your friends. They are no longer your friends. They have joined the corporation, which is we don't have a government, representative democracy. We have a private-public partnership, which is a corporate form of government. That takes into account interests of corporations, pharmaceutical companies, chemical companies, any companies that back political campaigns, technology companies. Obviously, Peter Thiel pretty much owns half of the government, if not all of it. And so we have these corporations and private individuals, ultra high net worth individuals that own the government side of it, which them sovereign liability shield. And this is what they're all after. They're after sovereign liability shield to do as they please, to pillage the resources as they see fit for themselves, to disregard the rights and needs of the people as they see fit. Everything that these robber barons, as they were called at the turn of the 20th century, they remain that. Nothing changed. All that changed is we have less of the veneer of democracy because that private-public partnership is rapidly running out of money. And that's why we're seeing it now. And it's ugly. And most people prefer to pretend it's not there. But it is there. And as Naomi said, we need to be actively examining it and discussing it and addressing it. And our only recourse is personal non-compliance and personal distrust of the government. They're claiming that by issuing these lame press releases that we can poke holes in 5 minutes, they are regaining our trust. Nothing can be further from the truth. It's the opposite of regaining trust. It's actually losing trust even more rapidly from the base that helped you get elected. So that's why I'm in full agreement with Naomi. These people have a humongous egg on their faces, self-inflicted, because they don't even communicate properly. And, their actions are bad, but they could have softened the blow by communicating better, or, maybe they're planning to do great things. I don't know, because I can't tell from their communication. Their communication is atrocious.
Well, the communication is rooted in lies, and that's where I begin. Yeah. Right? If they are knowingly lying to us, knowingly deceiving, knowingly manipulating, then I can only imagine that anything that they have planned for us in the future is going to be something I don't like. Right?
Exactly. And another message is a very simple test you can do for yourself. If you see some communication coming from HHS and saying that, oh, we're doing something wonderful to regain trust in public health agencies, for example, another fake win we're all supposed to be enthusiastically applauding is them removing mercury from vaccines, or saying that they're going to remove mercury from vaccines. And everyone in health freedom, large commentators, large accounts are running around saying, we're winning. It's such a great win. It's amazing achievement. It's such a... My advice to all these people, if this is a win, if you think it's a win, are you going to vaccinate your children now? So you on the health freedom side, who were speaking against vaccines, now that RFK Jr. said that he's going to remove mercury, are you going to get your children vaccinated now? Mm-hmm. And if the answer is no, then why are you calling it a win?
Right. It's a Pyrrhic win. It's essentially a very narrow, meaningless win. And you're absolutely right. If they're essentially going after the lowest hanging non-important fruit.
It's a nothing burger. First of all, it doesn't make anything safer. It doesn't make vaccines safer. Vaccines have thousands of poisons in them. Each single shot has thousands of different proteins that are just as poisonous. They have numerous amounts of metals. They have other chemicals that they don't disclose. They have aborted fetal cells. They have endotoxins. They have E. coli. They have salmonella. They have formaldehyde, ethanol. And you're telling me that removing mercury makes a difference?
Exactly. Right. I mean, this is the conundrum that we're in right now with this administration. Again, these non-wins, the vaccine injury compensation program, Sasha, another non-win, if we're going to go on the topic of non-wins. They are going to reform. We don't know what the reforms are going to look like sometime in the future. So the headline, the press release is Bobby Kennedy Jr. plans to reform the vaccine injury compensation program, and MAHA claps like seals for this amazing victory, when in reality, I mean, we wouldn't need the vaccine injury compensation program if pharmaceutical corporations had liability, right? If they actually were held liable for injuring and harming human beings. So the system is completely corrupted. By the way, we wouldn't have so many vaccine injured children and Americans if vaccines weren't coerced or force through mandatory vaccine programs and the childhood vaccine schedule. So we shouldn't even have a vaccine injury compensation program, but they're saying now, again, the lowest hanging fruit that is meaningless, like we're going to somehow reform that. They don't even tell you what the reforms are, right?
Yeah. And yeah, that's again, that it's basically adding insult to an injury. And I am all for having meaningful compensation to the people who were harmed. We have millions of people who have been harmed. Now, everyone needs to understand that if you take, for example, National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, which is a administrative kangaroo fake court, it's not a court, and it's administrative procedure that's designed to decline all the claims.
That's right.
And pay out pennies. Now, that program is now overwhelmed because they started forcing flu shots on all the healthcare workers annually. And so just the nurses who are getting injured from these flu shots and submitting claims into this program already overwhelmed this program. We're talking about 2,000 claims a year that being processed right now. And the program is nearly shut down by them. Okay. With the mRNA shots, we have 2/3 of the US population affected, potentially. 2/3. This is about 200 million people we're talking about, not 2,000 a year. And the amount of money that needs to be spent on this is unbelievably high. And they're saying that, we're going to reform this program. How are you going to reform it? Where are you going to have trillions of dollars produced to compensate the victims? Oh, and by the way, they're going to be coming out of our pockets, taxpayer money.
That's right.
They're going to drive our inflation by printing all these fake dollars now. And hopefully, that's what we would hope for. And pharma companies are not going to be held liable at all.
None.
Not even close. So we need to give them R&D money from taxpayers. We need to then purchase the product by taxpayers. And then we need to print trillions of dollars of taxpayers' money to compensate the victims.
Oh, it's a horrifying system. It's horrifying.
Yeah. So that's what they want us to celebrate, this particular thing. And instead, yes, I agree. Remove mandates and make manufacturers liable. And you don't need any of this. And nobody gets hurt.
It's astounding. It is so simple, but it does lend. It's a perfect example of how they take the simplest solution and then make it so impossible and so complicated and drag us through this process. I mean, I would guess that there are millions of COVID-19 vaccine injured people right now across the country who now have hope. They think somehow that Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going to reform this program so that they can get taken care of. And I just think that it's quite frankly very cruel to set people up for this and drag them through this process when they have no intention. I mean, we're going to have to fight this. I mean, we're going to have to win. I don't think, to the original point with Naomi that you expanded upon about not getting solutions from Washington, D.C. until we force them to. Like, we have to fix ourselves first. And that goes back to what you talked about, in terms of mass personal non-compliance. And I want to talk about that more. I want to expand a little bit on solutions, right? What are the things that we can do outside? That doesn't mean you give up on forcing this administration and this government to do the right thing. And I am actually very amazed at how, our group and what we've done, our letters and our petitions and the work that we've done in terms of lobbying has really moved the bar. I think that we're getting a lot of these fake wins. I don't think we would have gotten any wins at all. I think we're getting the fake wins because we have been so active in calling them out and demanding that they make good on their promises. So now we're in like the fake win, spot. But I really want to talk about when we come back, like how personal mass noncompliance, how all the other things that we do, the group building and the organizational formation, how that can lend to victories. Because we do need victories. I don't want to sit here and say, oh, there's no way that we can win. We've got to be able to we've got to be able to somehow grasp these victories and actually move the ball forward for liberty. So we had just a little bit of a freeze with Sasha Latypova. We're going to go to a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about non-compliance and organizational efforts from the bottom up and how we can use those efforts to force these bastards in Washington, D.C. to actually do the right thing for once. We'll be back in a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Donald Trump preparing an executive order to open up your 401k up to $12 trillion in private funds, Americans' retirement investments, to shady private equity and cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin. The scariest part about this is that you might not even know that your funds now have been opened up to investments in some of these type of operations, that your investments could be converted. Even if you know about this, there might not even be a way for you to get out of it. This is why the self-directed IRA backed by gold and silver is so incredibly important. The only company that I trust is Colonial Metals Group. Not only do I purchase my physical gold and silver from Colonial Metals Group, but I also have an individual self-directed IRA that is backed by physical gold and silver. This is not paper gold and silver. It's the real thing. And the process was so surprisingly easy, so quick. You can do it in less than a couple days. I love the folks over at Colonial Metals Group. They don't do pressure selling. They don't try to manipulate you. They don't use fear selling. They just meet you right where you are, lay out all of the options. If you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, because they're opening up to IRA as well with this executive order, if you have saved your entire life and you are concerned that that is going to be erased by some of these new executive orders and legislation, now is the time, guys. Do not wait. Have that conversation. There's an amazing rep standing by. Tish was my girl. She's amazing. Just go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. That is colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Make sure you tell them that Shannon Joy sent you, and you can get on the path to backing up your retirement with our friends at Colonial Metals Group. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. And if you think it's too late to get into physical gold and silver, think again. Jesse Colombo has an amazing Substack. I've been using Jesse for over 10 years. He's one of the best metals analysts out there. And he wrote this: why gold may soon surge to 4,400. He said, although gold has been relatively quiet in recent months following a strong start to the year, many investors have lost interest or assumed that the rally has run its course. However, I believe that gold may be setting up for another powerful advance with potential to surge to around 4,400 in very short order. He's seeing very clear similarities to the price action that we saw in November and December, when gold also moved sideways for a time before launching a dramatic 900 rally in 2025. And he's seeing the exact same setup now. Not only is he looking at $4,400 gold in the near future, but he went into a very long, very exhaustive piece as to why he thinks that there really is a lot of room for gold and silver to grow even further in the next 10 years. He wrote, given the current extremes, the risk of a major bear market is not a question of if, but when, and when it arrives, it will propel gold into the stratosphere. Based on this and other factors discussed in the piece, I believe gold will reach at least, get this, $15,000 per ounce in the next decade. And again, Jesse has been one of the most consistent analysts that I have been watching for over 10 years. He backs all of this up with actual facts and data. You can access this piece in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show. Click on his piece. But again, Colonial Metals Group, if you need a gold or silver strategy, whether it's physical gold or silver or in your Roth IRA or 401k as a way to back your retirement with physical gold and silver through an individual self-directed IRA, Colonial Metals Group is the company that I trust. Go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy, colonialmetalsgroup.com/joy. Welcome back, Sasha, to the Joy Virtual Studio. We lost you, just a little bit of freeze in the last segment, but that's okay. I mean, the freezing is timed perfectly. It's when you end your sentences. So, we're okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I agree with your sentiment about, I agree with everything you're saying about the non-wins. What I was interested in your comment a little bit earlier in the program about one of the ways to resist this, and this, people don't believe this. It is counter to what people believe. They think that they're so big, right? You talked about the public-private partnership that is the U.S. government corporation. That corporation exists to serve these power players, these corporate entities, moneyed entities, elitist entities, global entities, and also the political class. So they're all out there getting filthy rich and spending like drunken sailors, poisoning us, all the things. It's completely corrupt. You understand this because, you came from an Eastern European country. All right. So you have a very unique perspective into this. People look at that, they say it's too powerful, it's too terrible, they have everything, there's no reason we should do anything. Why even refuse to comply? You said that mass personal non-compliance is going to be very important and that it can change things. I want to hear from you on that, because what we need desperately now are people who are engaged, paying attention, active, outside of the two-party political spectrum, willing to hold these people accountable and hold their feet to the fire. But far too often we're getting people who are apathetic. They've run into the brick wall. They have given up. They don't think there's anything that they can do. And that's the last thing we need right now. So I'd like to give the rest of the show to you to get your thoughts on your experiences, growing up in a communist country, a free then communist country, which you experienced, and why from that experience, even today, you're saying we can still win. I mean, we can still make things right and seize back our liberty. I'll give it up to you.
Yeah. So I completely, I advise people not to lose hope at all, because I think, in fact, while we're describing a lot of things that are negative, a lot of things are moving in the, I would say, I can't necessarily call it positive direction, but it's the right direction to go. So the resolution of this situation is not going to happen by you, or me or anybody else electing somebody into the position of power, another president, another HHS secretary that we think is now the right person, and now they are going to put everyone in jail and reach accountability and reform. That's not going to happen, because as we've described the system is designed to serve corporate backers. The only difference between the two parties is how fast they loot the corporation. And the reason Trump was brought back to power is because the Democrats became incredibly, I would say, desperate, I think, and were looting too fast.
Right.
For the corporations, for the corporations' preference. So as major business owners and shareholders, I can totally understand their thinking. They were, wait a second, we actually need to increase our wealth and not just spend like drunken sailors, like what Democrats prefer to do. So Trump for them is a savior, because they feel like he's going to keep their interests and preserve their interests, and as far as corporate interests, and he's doing that. They're correct about that. So Peter Thiel is not an idiot. The other backers of Trump, Pfizer owners, obviously are not idiots either. And they're major backers of Trump. And so Trump is delivering for them. So far, what I've seen both Trump administration doing and HHS specifically is serving pharma's interests completely. As Naomi was mentioning before, when they take something away, even a small thing, even verbally, even symbolically, if they say we're now going to recommend vaccines only for the vulnerable, which is not true, we've discussed that, they feel the need, and probably are forced to feel that need by pharmas. They're made to feel that need by pharmas to replace it with something else. And that's what they're doing. They're replacing it with approving mRNA for all children, for example, or approving new versions of mRNA. And so you can see that game being played. they take something symbolic away to throw the bone to the MAHA base. So the MAHA base applauds and says, we win, while they have to supply whatever they have taken away, even symbolically, and even more so, to the real shareholders of the US government, which are pharma corporations, technology corporations, all kinds of large corporations. And so that's what's going on. But as a private person, what you can do is to don't give them blind trust. Do not give them blind trust. Check every word, especially when it comes from the political leaders that you support. Check every word. Check everything they said. Don't applaud them on social media. Call them out on social media. To the extent that they still care about that, that's a good sign. It means that they still have power. We have power, and we can use it. We can use it against them. And thank God for the internet, and thank God for technology tools that we have, that you and me and Naomi, with no resources, no offices of research personnel and so forth, we can do this research, and we can read these papers, and we can see their BS, and we can call them out on it. And that's our job to do every day, every single day. We need to make them, as Naomi said, we need to make them pay attention, and we need to make them understand that we're not buying their BS. They have to try harder.
Absolutely. Do you think that we are going to, I tend to believe that we are in the middle of, the vaccine thing was the first thing. I think we're in a holding pattern with the vaccine, kind of like I was talking about the gold and the surging. It's in like a sideways pattern. That's kind of where I see us with this movement and getting any type of reckoning for COVID-19 and the lockdowns and all of those things, which is actually a good thing. In some ways, they're trying to move backwards, but I think we're holding their feet to the fire. Mm-hmm. But I also believe that the expansion of the technocracy and all of the digital ID and the digital currency, everything that is coming out of Project Stargate, like I see that as the next level. Like that's going to be the next vaccine, right? Something's going to happen, and then they're going to say, okay, this is why we need the digital ID. Everyone line up. And okay, we have an economic collapse. This is why we need to convert everything into stable coins or Tether or whatever. I know this is not like your big area of expertise, but you do know about how governments manipulate and how governments will tend to try to manage the decline and increase their power. Mm-hmm. So how important do you think it is for people to be ready to resist and refuse compliance? And do you think we'll be able to? Like, is it going to be as hard as it was to refuse the vaccines? Or do you think we have enough people awake and ready to push back?
Yeah, certainly. My bet is that we are much more prepared for these kinds of things. When 2020 rolled around, we were naive. I didn't realize what was going on. Most people did not realize what was going on. Majority of people thought, well, maybe they're overblowing something, making it more scary than it is, but didn't pay attention. But now we have all been activated.
Right.
So it's a different game. It's a different scenario. Yes, they're going to try to push the digital control grid, and with all these stable coins and other digital dollar, programmable dollar, digital ID. And that's what people need to resist. Resist digital ID, resist digital currency, use cash, use physical, even use gold. Sometimes people use gold for transactions, maybe, or silver. It's not necessarily like the best currency, but it's a great store of value for sure.
Absolutely.
So educate yourself, educate your children. Obviously, resist their vaccination push, all the medical BS that they're pushing on people. As long as we resist all of these moves, we make it much, much harder for them. And they have to pay attention to us. The problem is I can't predict the future. I think what they're going to try to do is either do some sort of a cyber event, cyber attack, and try to shut down the internet, and then restart it with, now you have to use your digital ID, and right. So that's one of the scenarios that are being planned. They're so desperate now that they even started again airing this whole alien Aliens, the Bob Malone. I remember, you've commented on his interview. I'm actually writing an article about this. When he started saying, "Oh, aliens, it's all real." then we have these other jokers from NASA coming out to the straight face. I mean, I applaud them for their actor skills. I mean, they're so great. That they come in with straight face and say, we're now in the race with China to build nuclear reactor on the moon.
Oh my gosh, I know. It is ridiculous. The news cycle. The news cycle is a sight to behold in the United States of America. I mean, it really, you cannot make it up. Like Sydney Sweeney and her hot jeans, and Donald Trump, and like to aliens, to populating the moon.
Nuclear reactor on the moon. Okay, yeah. So the matrix is so desperate, it's falling apart. That's a good sign, in my opinion. It may get worse as far as the day-to-day living and economics and inflation and all that. I'm expecting it to get worse, but I think it's actually we're actually moving to the right direction. We're moving to the direction where the corporation is bankrupt. I mean, they are bankrupt, but they need to actually visibly collapse. So right. The corporation is going to visibly collapse.
Yeah,
and it will probably fracture. There may be scenarios where even the U.S. can fracture into regions and so forth. That's nothing. That's it can be the social and political and economic instability, maybe even some conflicts or violence, which I hope and pray to avoid. Mm-hmm. But those things happen in these kinds of transition period, and I don't want people to be, freaking out about this. Just think through this and be prepared mentally and hopefully financially, economically. But knowing this, there is something better coming after that. Better, we have opportunity to restructure. We have opportunity. We now have the truth coming out, the truth that we're being governed by this obscene corporate interest.
Yeah.
And that's important finding for people. We need to educate everyone about this. Everyone needs to become aware. Everyone start watching them, start calling their BS, stop uploading them like trained seals. Like, stop that behavior. That's not helpful at all.
No.
And then we will see what happens. But yeah, and I also completely agree with Naomi. The best reform that HHS could do today, and if I were in their position, that's what I would be pushing for, is to start telling the truth. You don't actually have to do anything yet. And we would give you plenty of time to do stuff if only you have acknowledged the truth. If you acknowledge the victims, they're already acknowledging that this mRNA junk doesn't work. So start acknowledging the victims, start acknowledging the illegal laws that they're utilizing to run this scam, the PrEP Act, the EUA countermeasures law, all the military, national security laws that they're utilizing, all of that, they need to acknowledge it and tell the truth, because actually they're obligated to do that under the PrEP Act. The PrEP Act says that every recipient of a countermeasure, which all of the mRNA shots are, every recipient of countermeasure needs to receive information about their known risks. And this is a known risk, that they're regulation-free, liability-free, full of poisons, and nobody gets held accountable for it. So that's the known risk, and it needs to be disclosed. Start there. And you will see how much momentum you will gain from your base. Instead of running in circles, backing yourself in the corner with these ridiculous press releases that are easy, we can easily poke holes in 2 minutes.
That is actually quite brilliant. Just start telling the truth. And you're right. You're right. It would be the momentum, the power, the energy that they would get from this enormous coalition of Americans would be unbelievable. And it's amazing to think what we could achieve if we have that in place. Mm-hmm. I love what you said about there is something better. As we close out the show today, you at the Summit for Truth and Wellness, one of the most compelling moments of your appearance and your contribution to the panel at the summit in the spring of 2025 was your telling of the story. I mean, you lived in a country during its collapse. I mean, as a young woman, and the transition to communism, and to have lived through that, and to then say, out of that rubble, like out of that, something good could come. And even if it means, and it's interesting to think, could the U.S. be broken up? Could we be into, different regional factions? I could see it happening, kind of like the Soviet Union and all of, the dividing up of those regions that happened. So as we close out, can you just retell that story? Because it's so inspiring, and it makes people realize that yes, we are in terrible, terrible times. Yes, there is a ton of confusion. Yes, we have these big, nasty, powerful, power-hungry people who are just vicious, running everything. But there is a place for human flourishment and the individual spirit, the human spirit, and privacy and liberty and pursuing happiness. And we can still do that. We can still claim our Constitution and our constitutional rights in this country. But I'd love to hear, the retelling of that, so that the audience, I think it's just inspiring.
Right. So I believe we were talking about, similar topics at the summit. And yes, so I did live through, I was in my, I think I just turned 19 or 20 when the Soviet Union collapsed. And initially it wasn't, so the political situation was very unclear. It was not, we didn't know anything. We didn't have the news. There was no internet, obviously, at the time. There was only government television news channels and radio, like 4 channels and 1 channel on the radio or something. And so all of the information was government propaganda. So we had no idea. People may not remember, but the Soviet Union used to consist of 15 republics, or similar to the idea of the state, although they were not states, they were just administrative regions, but there were 15 of them, and Ukraine was one of them, one of the 15. When the Soviet Union collapsed, it broke apart. So all the 15 republics became eventually independent states. They later formed different coalitions as well. But yeah, as I said, this is not unheard of, and it happens all the time, happened in history. Large empires do fracture, do collapse into smaller regions. So this is what happened. Then the economy also, interesting, it's very interesting what happens. The Soviet Union pulled the ruble from Ukraine when Ukraine became independent. And for 2 years, we had no currency. So I have experience living in a country with no money.
It's wild. Wow. So how'd you get your food? How'd you buy? How'd you do, because people wonder about this. Like, if, how are we going to buy and sell if the government messes with our currency?
So I think actually there are some parallels here to be learned, even though the technology was a different level of technology at the time, but in principle, it's going to be the same, just probably with technological twist or technological implementation. So at the time, literally, there was no money, and all the enterprises, all the businesses, but there were no businesses. They were all used to be government-owned enterprises,
right,
where people worked. Eventually, they started coming, that private buyers would start buying them out and so forth. But so they started issuing these IOUs, paper tokens, paper coupons. I even have the picture of them. I posted on my Substack at some point. Yeah. So they would literally just like a sheet of paper, lined with these like stamps and stamps. They would use on paper, and you would go and try to exchange them for something in the store if the store had it. So that was a very interesting experience. But I think those paper tokens can be replaced by the government tokens, and I think that's the mechanism that they're going to utilize. So instead of issuing them on paper, they will be issuing some sort of a government stable coin.
Okay.
People, right? And that stable coin, well, the paper IOUs that we were getting, at least they had the advantage of being essentially physical piece of paper, right? The government token, digital token, has disadvantage of being totally programmable. So they can control your behavior with them.
Right.
And that's what I would like people to be really aware of, and call them and resist it at every turn, no matter who is pushing them on you, Trump or RFK Jr. or whoever your favorite politician will come out, or your favorite freedom advocate, a commentator will come out and say, oh, this is great, government is helping us. Beware, they're not helping you. They're just trying to get you into that cage.
Right.
So that's kind of my experience. I mean, the people switched off also to other forms of currency, and that's something to investigate. So I think physical gold and silver are absolutely important here. Any hard assets, anything else physical that you can think of that has value, can store value, or can be used for transactions. I was even given an example of, you can use ammo as cash, because each cartridge is $1.
That's right.
Right. So.
Or dollars. I mean, Catherine Austin Fitts, a lot of people are down on cash. I get it. It's fiat currency. I understand it's completely corrupted by the government and whatever they print them. But it's tradable and it's light. You can move it around, back it up with the gold in the safe. And, for investments, with my investments, I'm not heavily invested. I use the independent IRA. But yeah, I think that we just need to kind of rethink everything, but you can resist the digital ID. So we got to get ready to do that. And we also have to continue to hold their feet to the fire about what they did to us, the democide of 2020 and 21. Like, we're not going to forget that. I know Sasha is not going to forget that. And again, love your spirit. Like, I'm so ready to go. Like, and I'm to reiterate what Naomi said when she signed off with us. I am so for you, Naomi and Mary, and so many of mainly women. I'm going to be out there. A lot of great guys, but a lot of women who are kind of pushing back, holding the line. Could not do without you. So thank you so much. Let everyone know how they can support you through your Substack, because we want to make sure that you're getting supported as well.
Right. I encourage people to subscribe to my Substack, and also make sure, if you think that you're subscribed, make sure that you are, because Substack actually recently put me on do not promote list, and they have capped my subscription numbers. So they're keeping me at a certain number. As soon as my subscribers get slightly above that number, they remove subscribers. So I am completely blocked now, and I would like people to subscribe, please, and make sure that you're subscribed, because it will remove you without your knowledge.
Okay. And people can do paid subscriptions, so they can give you payments, whatever makes sense for them. There are different options.
Yeah, I appreciate paid subscribers very much. It helps me because it's a full-time job, but all my new articles are free, and I want them to be reaching a broader audience. Please share my Substack.
Amazing.
And I encourage other people to subscribe, because this is ridiculous what's going on. And as I said, they're completely blocking me. And
I had no idea, Sasha. I had no idea. Jeff Jornick is putting together a Substack style part of Pickaxe. We'll see what he's up to, because that's disturbing that they're doing that. So I'm sorry that's happening. All right, Sasha Latypova, thank you so much for being with us today. We love your work.
Thank you, Shannon.
Absolutely. Thank all of you for being with us today on the Shannon Joy Show. Huge thanks to the beautiful, amazing Inez Andy Cyrus, who is producing the Shannon Joy Show today. You guys are absolutely amazing. Could not do it without this beautiful, amazing audience. And we will see you. I mean, we have, tomorrow, Best of Show. Next week, we have Daniel Horowitz in the hopper. Peter Schiff is going to be on the Shannon Joy Show, among others. So another big week of great interviews. Everything that matters to you: culture, politics, economics, health, you name it. We're hitting it here on the Shannon Joy Show from an independent perspective. Not left, not right, just the truth every day. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow on the Shannon Joy Show.